I was really able to relax my conscious mind and let my subconscious just flow. And it might be a result of the Mindworx stuff, because that's the only thing I'm doing different now than I was before. Actually spending more time trying to mess with the line between consciousness and unconsciousness. It's been a few days now. Those memories and that experience isn't as fresh, but dude, that was really crazy. I remember thinking during that experience that I was somewhat having flashbacks to a time when my brain was less developed. Not totally pre-language when I was experiencing it, but it was like these were from pre-language days. What's kind of piqued my interest is maybe I've adapted to really suppress that part because it's so loud.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
Yeah.
So start to lean
Mine is
into
always
it.
so quiet.
Right, which is why you were having a challenge with Mindworx at the beginning, because like you're like, nothing's coming up. That's the whole idea. Find the thing that you've been suppressing and start to intentionally lean into it more. Yo!
What's up, dog? Long time no see.
Right? How are your meditations this week?
I did do a couple yesterday. Thanks for reminding me. That's really helpful. So yesterday, what did I do? I think I laid down for probably like 15 or 20 minutes. And I just like laid there and then I felt, I don't know where it started, but I felt like a really light, like humming. I think it was like, I think it was in one of my hands, but so I felt this like light, more like a humming. It was very faint, but I put my attention on it. And then I was like, I wonder if I can move it to another part of my body. So I like moved it like up my arm and then it moved. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Wonder if I can do that again. And then I did like move it over here. And I spent like 15 minutes just kind of changing my focus and like willing the sensation to move. And then it kept working. And each time it was like, I wonder if it'll work this time. And then I was like, it worked that time.
That's
and
amazing.
So that was it. Like it wasn't super profound or anything, but it was kind of fun. And I did another meditation, but it was more like my usual, like nothing's going on in my head.
Yeah, dude, super interesting to hear about that, like humming that started in your hand and then you can move it.
Is that what you experience when you talk about moving energy, or is something different?
It's not for me. It's not as isolated as that. It's not like something in my hand and then I move it to here and then I move it to here. For me, it's it's either one of two things. Well, it's one of a few things, but either an expanding, like I try to, instead of just move it, I try to expand it, or I try to kind of collapse into it because the energy is like expanding or collapsing, right? That's like kind of the two ways things kind of go. All right.
It's been a few days now, so like those memories and that experience isn't as fresh, but dude, that was really crazy. Like I remember thinking during that experience that I was like somewhat having flashbacks to a time when my brain was less developed. Like I was in like a lower level of development, like not totally pre-language when I was experiencing it, but it was like these were from pre-language days. I think that maybe my different senses were more connected back then. And so I had like auditory sound effects in my head that their meaning was like maybe like physical movements or something, like, you know, running and kicking a soccer ball had a sound in my mind.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And because when I was laying there, like I couldn't feel my body at all. And I was hearing things and I would hear them in threes. Like I would hear like 3 like half or quarter second, like weird sounds that don't exist in real life, but like these weird sounds. And then I would, after the third one, I would be left with this feeling of like recognition. Like I remember experiencing that before.
Right. Like a deja vu kind of.
Yeah. And they were all like, I didn't have any like real concrete memories, but I just knew that they were from a long time ago. Like it's been a long time, but they were all familiar. And that's what was really tripping me out. It was like, I recognize all these sounds, but they're not real sounds.
When you say they're not real, like they don't exist in real life, could a computer make them? Like if
I
you
mean,
knew,
yes,
if you had this, okay, but they're
I
not
think
something
so.
you would hear on a regular basis.
Yeah, like they're not, I mean, I'll try to make it, but it's like it's just really fucking obscure
Yeah.
sound when I would, it was weird because like it wasn't like my ear was hearing it, but it was like hearing, it
Yeah.
was in the brain though.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't come out of the room, because I was like, I wanted to figure out what that was. I could have gotten up and like left, but like I wanted
Right.
that to continue, and I wanted to like keep
Yeah,
hearing
man.
that.
Explore that and see what it is. And
Yeah.
yeah,
So I'm not sure. I've never experienced that before. And it was
at
weird that
least not since you were younger.
yeah, I think my senses were crossing, like
Yeah.
synthesia,
Synesthesia
whatever. And I
or
think
synesthete.
my auditory lobe or whatever was picking up on some other sense. And I think that's kind of where it's coming from. Maybe it
Yeah,
was
that would
like
make
picking up
sense.
on a visual thing. So maybe it was that, but it was all familiar.
Were the sounds happening all the time,
No, it was
or
like,
just like
no, it would happen in threes. It would like boom, boom, boom. I would have that feeling of recognition, and then it would be kind of like nothing for a minute, and then like 5 or 10 seconds later, it would happen again.
that's wild, man.
Dude, it was
And
super.
so when from what you can recall from when this happened to you years ago, right? From when you were experiencing that, when that was your way of being, was it similar? It was like three, and then there'd be a pause, and then three again every few minutes, or just like every now and then, every other day, or a couple times a
Like,
day.
like I'm not exactly sure, but like I got this sense that it was like that was how, like I got the sense that I, when I was a kid, I would hear those, or I would experience those like auditory sensations all the time
Yeah.
throughout the day for different concepts. Like it was
Okay.
like,
So multiple times throughout the day.
yeah, like all, but like
Yeah.
all the time. It was like how you
Mhm.
interpret the world around you. Like I feel like I was interpreting it, but there were sound effects in my mind that were like my concept map of the world around me. It's like how I understood the
Yeah.
world was through these signals that my brain created. And now I don't need those because I have language to explain everything. But I just got the sense that those were like, my brain is wired to formulate its own language, and that was like my own language when I was a child. That's just the
Interesting.
sense I got. And I also had a bunch of
Yeah.
that like that my brain is working a lot like Chat GPT. Like I felt like, Chat GPT, it's a neural network with layers. And I felt like I was basically witnessing my subconscious, like what's going on in my subconscious all the time. But I was like
Yeah.
experiencing it consciously. And it's a noisy place. And it was a little scary because it's like, this is really
Yeah.
loud. Like I can't ignore this. Like there were no
Yeah.
words. I think that's why I think it was pre-language, is because it would happen and I would go to turn it into words, but there weren't any words to describe it.
Yeah. So interesting. I guess now what I'm curious about is what would be like an ideal outcome with that? Like, is there any part of it that's uncomfortable or painful? That's something that needs to stop, or you would like to let go of, or does it seem beneficial in a way and you want to like integrate that into your life?
My
Part of it.
mind is, I'm curious. Like I want to know what
Yeah.
that is. I want to know where it came from. So I want
Yeah.
to go back there. And if I was able to meditate
Yeah.
enough, I think I probably need the help a few more times just to figure out what that state of mind is. That was probably the most relaxed trip I've ever had.
Even
Yeah.
with all the noise, okay, even
Yeah.
with all the noise and all the sounds, it wasn't agitated.
No, because
It was still calming. Interesting.
I'll have a few like thoughts that are like maybe a little bit anxious thoughts or things that are currently bothering me in my life or problems I'm trying to solve. I'll usually think of some of those and it'll be uncomfortable, but I'll see it from a different perspective. And I'll usually get like a different perspective, and I'll come out of the trip with like one or two things that I'm like, okay, like I'm glad I did that. Cause
Yeah.
like, but this one was like, there weren't any of those negative things that came up. It was like, I was completely relaxed. I was letting my mind do whatever it wanted. But when I
Yeah.
say relaxed, I mean like I was really able to relax my conscious mind and let my subconscious just flow. And it might be a result of the mind work stuff, because that's the only thing I'm doing different now than I was before.
Yeah.
Actually spending more time like trying to mess with the line between consciousness and unconsciousness. And like my
That's the
progress
idea.
there seems to have really come just in the last week or two, when I started relaxing a little bit and just being like, okay, well, even though I don't feel anything, like where does my attention go anyway? And like letting my
Yeah.
subconscious guide me first.
That's interesting, man. So I just had a thought while you were talking about that. Like I've said, for me, things are very kind of physical, right? Very like sensation based. And so when I do Mindworks, that's what I focus on. I focus on the sensations and moving them, dissolving them, letting them go. What I would be curious about is if my way of experiencing the world is through feeling, if your way of experiencing things and ideas is through sound, you could do the same process with the sounds when they come up during a meditation, right? Like see if you can have the sound last longer than just half a second. See if you can make the sound louder in your head if it's not agitated. But you see, kind of see what I mean? Like lean into the way that it makes sense for you.
Yeah. It's what's interesting about that is, and kind of what caught me off guard so much about hearing that stuff is like, I don't normally think that way. And like when I dream, I very rarely hear any noises. And it's,
Interesting.
yeah, what's kind of piqued my interest is maybe I've adapted to really suppress that part because it's so loud.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So
it's
start to lean
mind is
into that.
always so quiet. I
Right.
think,
Which is why you were having a challenge with Mindworks at the beginning,
yeah,
right? Because like you're like, nothing's coming up, right? That voice wasn't there. So that's the whole idea, right? Is exactly that. Find the thing that you've been suppressing and start to intentionally lean into it more.
Mhm.
For me, that's body sensations. I don't know what it's going to be like for most people, but for the last two guys that did my program, it seemed like it was body sensations as well. So for you, especially if you're a synesthete, it could totally be sound. And it's from what you've been saying that it sounds like that's it, or at least that's
Yeah,
definitely worth
I think
exploring.
it could be. 'Cause,
So
like I
yeah.
always have a song stuck in my head too. Like I woke up in the middle of the night
Tulum
last
Crypto
night.
Fest.
I've had this song stuck in my head all day that was in my head at night. Yeah, the Tulum
Yeah.
Crypto Fest. Like I always have a
Yeah.
song in my head. I wonder if that's related.
Because you were repeating that Tulum Crypto Fest thing way more than I would expect the average person to repeat an earworm or a song that's stuck in their head. So yeah, it definitely seems like sound is a thing, or it's like it's your thing, right? It seems like sound is kind of your thing. So yeah, that's where I would go with Mindwork stuff.
Okay.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'll try it. I'll have to like just focus on trying to hear something.
Or
Right.
just yeah, or just wait and see what comes up again, right? It's the way that the process is ordered is it starts cognitive and linguistic. So you'll have to kind of find your entry point into that state of being, for lack of a better word, right? What's the entry point that kind of triggers these sounds, like cognitively, linguistically? For me, it's I put my awareness kind of where there's that discomfort, where there's sensation in my body, and then I'll like lean into it and then kind of press into that thing directly. But there's definitely like a inner exploration you have to do, but then you like lean into that when it happens.
I hope I don't go to the loony bin.
If you do, I'm sure Bobby and I will come get you.
We'll all go together.
Oh man. If you're not a little bit crazy, something's wrong with you. That's the way I see it.
Everybody's crazy once you get to know them.
Right?